Today is Friday. It is also Veterans Day. Thank you to all the veterans out there. Sincere thank you. It's been about a little over a week since I got out there and played poker and vlogged. Went to New York City, was there for about 5 or 6 days. Boosie ran her second marathon while we were there. Not only did she run her second marathon, but she knocked about 30 minutes off of her time from her first marathon. Pretty badass if you ask me. So yeah, New York was an awesome time. Oh, and by the way, you won't believe who I ran into at the airport.
I'm not very good at
what up?
Look at the camera.
Look who it is.
Yeah?
So right now this is Vlogception.
That's right.
This is Vlogception happening. This is a meeting.
Yeah, that's weird.
A meeting of the worlds, something like that.
We never met before, and Andrew has a vlog, Andrew Neem. I'm sure you can find it. And
we just randomly ran into each other at the airport here. This is New York City, by the way.
New York.
This guy's coming back from the tropical island of Aruba. Boosie and I just on the way back from New York. She ran the marathon.
Yeah.
And here we are.
It's so strange.
We spent all that time in Vegas, hanging out, running,
never run into each other.
Running in somewhat similar circles, but had to come to New York City to run into each other.
Weird. But
and
well,
here we are.
Hopefully you have a safe flight.
And happy travels.
Because I'm on the flight too.
We'll see you back in Vegas.
Yeah, definitely.
For those of you who don't know, that's a guy who goes by the name of The Trooper. He's kind of he's who I like to call the OG Vegas poker vlogger. He's been doing this thing for a couple years now. I'll put a link down below to his vlog. You should definitely check it out if you're a fan of this sort of thing. Pretty awesome stuff, pretty funny guy. Unfortunately, towards the end of the New York trip, or on the way back, or somewhere around there, I ended up coming down with a cold. So that put me out of commission for another few days afterwards, after the New York trip. Didn't think it'd be a good idea to go play some poker and infect another 8 or 10 or 12 people or whatever. So just taking some time off from the poker grind, but probably about 85% or so back to full health at this point. So gonna get back to it and head out there. So there's a 2-5 game going at Caesars Palace that I thought we'd go check out. There are some 5-10 games going at Bellagio, but we've already been to Bellagio a couple times now. Haven't been to Caesars yet. Always like to mix it up, keep that variety going. So I guess we'll go see how it is, and if it turns out to be so-so, we could always just walk right over the little overpass over to the Bellagio. The other thing is that since I'm not feeling quite 100%, figured maybe it's a good idea to not feel like I have to push it too hard, but usual drill, just gonna see how it is. It's almost the middle of November. My car said it's 85 degrees out here. Normally Halloween is when that switch flips and it gets pretty chilly, but no sign of that happening. All right, so I just sat in a 2-5 game. Got a seat right away, which is always nice. Don't recognize anybody at the table. There is one dude who's grinding online poker at the same time as he's playing in the game. Usually not a good sign. Not somebody that you want to be paying off too lightly, but like I said, don't recognize anybody, so that's good. I don't really find myself here at Caesars too much these days. I used to come here a lot. Back when the poker room was in the old spot, which is now the Omnia, which used to be right next to the Pure nightclub. A lot of memories in that place. 2-5 game used to be uncapped, now it's just a 1K max buy-in, so that's what we're in for, and I'm gonna get to it. Boom, aces. Hello, aces. You know, if we're in split screen mode and you see pocket aces, something interesting is about to happen. So there's 2 or 3 limps. The hijack makes it 30, and we make it 110 out of the small blind with aces. Fairly standard. Folds back to the hijack, who calls pretty quickly. Flop is queen 7-6 rainbow. I c-bet 120. Again, pretty standard. And he calls, again, rather quickly. The turn is where it gets pretty interesting. The turn is a king. It brings a backdoor flush draw. Really interesting spot here. You could pretty easily make an argument for betting again or for checking. Normally in 1-2, 1-3, 2-5 games, with my value hands, I tend to just keep betting until somebody tells me that I could be beat. The king is so interesting though, because it's tough for him to call with worse. It's tough for him to have a lot of hands that continued on the flop that, like the king, that we still beat and that we can still get value from. All that being said, I decided to bet 180. He thinks for a little while, and he ships all in for approximately $630. Pretty weird spot, pretty not great of a spot, I would say. Don't love it by any means. You know, it's tough to assign a range to some random 2-5 player. What would he be shoving here with? What should he be shoving here with? What hands would I shove here with? What hands would he shove for value that we can still beat? These are all the things that are going through my mind. And then on top of all that, the thing that always goes through my mind in these situations, for better or worse, is would he be playing the same way that I would be playing? Probably not. And in that regard, people do things that I would never do all the time, especially randoms on a Friday night on the Strip in Las Vegas. And oftentimes I use that line of thinking to talk myself into a call. Now, can you make a case for bet folding here? Absolutely. Can you make a case for check calling here? Absolutely. Can you make a case for bet calling off this guy's entire stack? Does it matter that people tend to do weird things and spaz out sometimes? Does it matter that this guy is from England and that he wasn't exactly the nittiest player at the table? I don't know. I mean, all these things, they always factor into the hand on a macro level. If there's one leak that I have that I could pretty easily point to, it's that I'm a pretty curious poker player. A lot of times I like to see hands to the end. I really want to know what's going on pretty often. Is this a light call down? You could argue either way, and I could certainly see it either way. Anyway, I talked myself into a call. The river comes a 7, which is a pretty good card, especially considering the results. He asks if I have aces. I do, obviously, and I show. He shows me king, queen. Pretty big suck up. So are there different ways that I could play this hand? Sure. You will never hear me say that I always know how to play a hand perfectly, things like that. Pretty soon after this hand went down, I sent the hand details to my text message group, the little mastermind that's helped me out a lot over the years, and gave the guys a chance to share their thoughts before I gave them the results. And pretty much as expected, it seemed like there was no one clear path, no one clear line that is the best line to take with this hand. A couple guys said keep betting. One guy said check call, and one of the guys said pretty much what was going on in my mind, that you just never know what people are thinking in their mind, and that it's okay to go with it. And sometimes you're gonna have equity, sometimes you're not. You can expect to lose a decent amount of the time. Whatever. You make a decision and you move on. So in this hand, again, there's 2 or 3 limps. I'm in the small blind with jacks, and I decide to raise to 35. My cutoff for raising out of the blinds is probably around 9s, pocket 9s, something like that, as far as pairs go. And depends on the table as far as like your king queen type hands, or you know, ace jack suited or something like that. It definitely depends on the table and how straightforward and passive they're playing. But with jacks, I'm always raising in a limped pot with jacks in the blinds. So I make it 35, and 2 of the limpers call. The flop is 10, 7, 6 rainbow. I make a fairly standard c-bet in a 2-5 game. Sometimes in 5-10 games, I'll check like a middling connected board with an overpair and try and pot control, because a lot of times these flops might connect with the caller's range more than a pre-flop raiser's range. But pretty straightforward 2-5 game. I c-bet and I make it $70. The first limper calls and the second limper holds. The turn is a king. This shouldn't be too bad of a card for me. The only hand that should have improved here would be King 10, possibly Ace King that played really weird, but that's very unlikely. That being said, I decided to check. Now, I think this is another one of those spots that I would like to have back once again. There's so many pairs plus draws, things like 10-9, 7-8, 6-8, 10-8. Lots of hands like that will have limped in, and you know, especially if they're suited, limp called pre-flop, definitely are calling on that flop. And if I check, I'm just giving all these hands a free card on the river. And like I said, this king shouldn't improve too many hands in the limp caller's range and calling on that flop. So I think like a medium-sized bet on this turn is probably best. I don't know, I decided to check. And she checks back pretty quickly. The river is a 4. Shouldn't improve too many hands, I don't think. 4 on the river. So I decided to go for small value against like an ace 10 type hand, queen 10 maybe. I bet 115 on the river, and she calls pretty quickly. Unfortunately, she's got the king 9 of spades. The old gutter ball plus overcard. Got him. Alright, so maybe not the proudest win that I've ever booked, but what can you do? I'll take it. Since we drilled that suck out, that big suck out with the aces, the biggest suck out so far for the vlog, can only mean one thing. Gotta go grab a beer. And no, we're not going to Margaritaville, so don't even think about it. World famous O'Shea's. And it's hard to come in here and not just start degenning it up left and right. I think most of those days are behind me, thankfully. Mostly. Not completely, but mostly. Some night I should come in here, play every single one of these games. Alright, I better go before I get any crazy ideas. Oh, and by the way, he sucked out on the turn and then I sucked out on the river, okay? So he sucked out first, but we get the last laugh.